Hey everyone, welcome to my flower oracle setup. I'm very delighted to show you how I set up my own flower oracle, and I'd love to inspire you to set up yours. Basically, it's a system of divination that works a little bit like runes, where you throw them and then interpret them, except with the flower oracle, you imbue every item in the oracle yourself. You decide what each and every flower means, how many flowers you use, and what you basically want to give as a theme for the flower oracle set that you make. This is especially great if you feel a very close relationship to nature. Personally, I've always wanted to use runes, but I never quite got around to learning all of the meanings. And when I read an article in Witchy magazine about how you can make a shell oracle from seashells, I figured, why not make a flower oracle? And that is basically what I'm going to show you. I will go through every step. I will give you tips on interpretation and also show you how I throw them and in what context I put everything so that you get a good, juicy reading out of them and aren't just confused. Because let's face it, I think that's what most people are afraid of when they throw the runes without much experience. You just see all of them and you're like, oh gee, where do I even start, you know? And I want to help you with that as well. The first thing we're going to do to set up the flower oracle is to think of what the theme of our oracle should be. Is it going to be general? Is it going to be love related? Is it going to be money related? You decide how specific you want the meanings to be. First, you should write down any themes and any actions that you want to show and explore with your oracle. There are a lot of different themes. Here's some examples. This is going to be the meaning of each flower. For example, one could stand for spirituality, one could stand for wealth, another for love, the mind, the body, or your emotions. And these are all general themes, they are nouns. And then to make the reading more juicy so that you actually have something that tells you what to do, we will add the actions, which are verbs. Something like learning, reflecting, change, grow, release, or challenge. And you will see later how all of these in conjunction make up the flower oracle reading and make it way easier to interpret. The second step, maybe you already have an idea which flowers you want to use for what. I usually just go with what I have. I don't go by the prescript meanings, except for example with roses. You know, roses are love, that's kind of obvious. But other than that, I didn't look up any meanings. I just assigned the flowers or collected the flowers as I felt called to do so. So you will search the flowers. You can do this outside, or you can take some from your balcony, from your garden. You can also take them from a bouquet that someone maybe gave you, and then you're going to dry them. Luckily, I already had a very extensive collection of dried flowers, so basically all I had to do was pick and choose which one I wanted to be part of my oracle. Depending on how experienced you are with drying flowers, whether it is pressing them in a book or just leaving them out in the sun or just letting them lie around your house, honestly, or hanging them on the ceiling, you may want to see that you pick more simple flowers. You don't want to pick anything that would fall apart easily. For example, dahlias sometimes have a tendency to just fall apart. That's why I only use them as leaves, like blossoms, not whole flowers, because they would usually fall apart. It's also okay if you can't name all of the flowers. It happens to me. I don't know each and every name of the flowers that I get in a bouquet. If I grow them myself in my garden, I obviously do. But sometimes there's just some in a bouquet that I've seen a million times and I just don't know. And shamefully, I haven't looked them up because I didn't know how. Whatever. Don't shame yourself. Don't blame yourself. It's fine to not know the meaning of each and every single flower you use and the name of it. Step 3 is going to be to assign meaning to the flowers. So you take the themes and the actions that you wrote down in your book and you basically assign a flower to each and every one of them. I would suggest that you don't take too many themes and too many verbs because it can get quite complicated and you're going to need a very large space. I started with 11 themes and 11 flowers and might expand or change the meanings later. If you ever feel that in the process a meaning doesn't quite feel right, it doesn't quite click with a flower, then see if you want to change them around maybe and just swap one theme that has a flower with another one, you know. Do what feels right, basically. And if you feel like the rose petal doesn't belong with love, but rather with the mind, then do that. The next step is to cleanse and consecrate the flowers. I did this by cleansing them with sage and then holding them in my hand and thinking of the meaning that I want to imbue it with. I held them in my hand. First, I just kind of cupped them in there and thought of my intention. In this case, I thought of this particular petal meaning spirituality. And then I used my index finger to point at it and imbue it very deeply with this thought of spirituality and the subjects of spirituality that surround me. And that's what you want to do with each and every flower. And I can tell you, after assigning the meanings and consecrating them, it was burned into my mind what every single flower meant. Of course, afterwards, I still needed some help to look it up when I did the actual oracle reading. I sort of had to glance back at what I wrote for each flower, but you're going to have an easier time than you think remembering these if you really imbue them with your intention and with the subject that you have in mind. Then the next 2 steps are quite simple. You want to put the flowers into a small vessel that you have. In this case, I just placed them in a little cup. This is going to be important. You want the vessel to be sort of open, so don't have it be a tiny bottle that you just squish them all into. They sort of need room to breathe and space to breathe, basically. Now we're going to draw the circle that we will throw the flowers into. This is a very basic setup for reading runes or flowers or shells. And of course, you are free to change it up as you want. You could also make a star shape or a triangle shape, whatever fits you best. This is just what I started with because I find it to be very easily readable. For myself, I actually drew this circle with a smudge stick, but for the sake of this video, I will use a pen because otherwise you won't be able to see it very well. Then you want to separate the circle into quarters, and each quarter means something different. It pertains to a different thing. The whole left side of the circle pertains to the past. The whole right side of the circle pertains to the future. And the middle sort of pertains to the now. Then the bottom half of the circle relates to your inner workings, your inner world, your psyche, your inner landscape, basically. And the top half of the circle pertains to the outer world, what is going on around you, the environment, maybe even other people. And anything that is outside of the circle, I read as being not particularly important at the moment, or it could also be something that you're forgetting. So you want to pay attention to what flowers land there as well. Okay, we're going in. It's time for the actual reading. Close your eyes. Think of your question or the subject that you wish to get guidance on. This is where, if you are into deity work, or if you work with one goddess or just Mother Nature, if you're a pantheist, call in whatever energies you feel like calling in, your ancestors, and ask for guidance from the spirit realm, basically, through these flowers that you imbued with your meaning and what is on your mind right now. Then you will take the bowl and you will sort of gently, but also sort of decisively, whatever you feel like, shake it and go in circles so that all of the flowers slowly fall out of it, or quickly fall out of it in whatever way they feel they need to fall out. You might want to give them a little bit of order. Sometimes they tend to land in a pile, so you want to separate them a little bit, but you don't want to change the general spot where they landed. So if they landed in the past, make sure not to like put them over the line into the future. Okay, I know this looks like a random pile of flowers right now, but I'm going to give you some tips and little tricks that you can use in order to get a start, basically. Because once you are in that ritual mindset and in that divination mindset, it's going to come a lot easier. The start is always the hardest. First, you want to think about all of the meanings again. Maybe point with your finger at each flower and say the meaning again, referring back to your notes if you need to. Then see where you intuitively see connections and start either drawing lines physically or drawing lines in your mind. Where do you see connections? Where do you see that the flowers might be facing towards each other, facing away from each other? Write all of that down or keep it in mind. What I also like to work with is directionality. Directionality is very important here. Which flowers are looking at each other? Where do they point? Is there, for example, a flower that pertains to your spirituality that points towards the future but is still in the past? Or is there one flower that landed on the outside of the circle and is even facing away from everything? Do you see any lines going from the past to the present? So maybe you could have the spirituality flower in the past, and then in between the learn flower, and then in the future you have the love flower. So you could see a line between those and say, okay, maybe the key to finding love, whether it's for myself or for others, is to learn more about myself and about my spirituality. And don't overwhelm yourself. Don't try to write down every single connection. Just go by what your mind tells you and what your eye naturally focuses on, because usually your mind is sort of going to pick out what is most important. It's not about writing down where each and every flower lies. You can take a photo for that. It's more about, intuitively seeing the connections between them. So pay attention to things like, do you have lines going from the past to the future? Do you have lines going from the inner world to the outer world? Do you maybe have a triangle of flowers that is completely located in the future or in your inner world in the past? And that is why I love this very simple circle system, because it allows you to have sort of an x-axis and a y-axis. And depending on where it lands, it's almost like statistics or something, or like some sort of mathematical calculation where you determine how much outward it is or how much inward and how much in the past or in the future the oracle speaks to. This is a very private and very magical thing, and that's why I love it, because I love doing creative things that actually have your energy in it. You can buy a set of runes, you can buy a set of tarot cards, but the things that you can't buy and the things that you think about with your runes and with your tarot cards are going to be the most valuable in your journey. When you figure out what, for example, the Knight of Wands in tarot means for you rather than what is written in the book. You learn it through experience, And when you're sort of in need of some creative task to reconnect you with divinity, with your spirituality, whatever you want to call it, your psyche, then I think creating your own set of divination articles and divination products, so to speak, is very, very important and very helpful. If you make a flower oracle, please tag me on Instagram or send me an email or something. My Instagram is right down here, and it's at anya.esma, and I would love to see what you create. It would make me so happy. So I hope you have fun creating your own oracle. Enjoy, and I'll see you all next time.